Somewhere in international waters right now, there's a ship the length of 1.5 football fields with 200 people inside it. It's been at sea for over a month. It won't see land for 2 more weeks. And the people on board are working 12 hours a day, every day, processing more fish in a single shift than most fishermen catch in a year. It cost over $500 million to put in the water. It's called a factory trawler, and it's one of the strangest, most extreme workplaces on the planet. Here's what life on it actually looks like. There are about 38,000 of these ships out there right now, scattered across every ocean on Earth. The biggest ones are absurd. The Annalise Elena, formerly known as the Atlantic Dawn, is 144 meters long, which is longer than the Statue of Liberty is tall, laid on its side. It can carry 7,000 tons of frozen fish. It processes 350 tons of catch a day, and it burns through 3,000 tons of fuel before it even has to think about coming back to port. Inside, up to 200 people are living, working, sleeping, eating, and somehow not killing each other for weeks at a time. They come from a dozen different countries. They share cabins with people they didn't choose. They eat the same meals at the same tables for 42 days in a row. When people hear the word fishing, they usually picture 2 guys on a small boat, a couple of poles, maybe a cooler of beer. This is not that. This is a city that floats, eats fish, and never sleeps. So here's how it actually works. The day starts at 5 in the morning when the factory foreman pounds on your cabin door. You roll out of a bunk that's about the size of a coffin, try not to bump into your roommate who's getting dressed on the other side of the room, and stumble upstairs to the galley. Breakfast is the same thing it was yesterday. Scrambled eggs, pancakes, hash browns, coffee. You don't really care. You're not eating because you're hungry. You're eating because in 20 minutes you'll be on your feet for the next 6 hours, and there's no second chance at calories. By 6 in the morning, you're suited up in waterproof bibs and rubber boots, standing in front of a conveyor belt with about 30 other people. The fish start coming, and they don't stop. This is the part nobody warns you about, the pace. On the biggest trawlers, the fillet line moves at about 145 fish per minute, per worker. You grab them, you turn them, you place them on the trays, you grab the next one. The machine doesn't care if your hands cramp. The machine doesn't care if you cut yourself. The machine doesn't care if you've been doing this for 10 hours, and the only thing keeping your eyes open is the cold spray of fish water hitting your face. This is why they call the entry-level factory workers slimers. It's not a compliment. By the end of your shift, your gloves are covered in fish slime. Your rain gear smells like low tide on a hot day, and your hair has scales in it, whether you wore a hat or not. At 9, you get a 15-minute break. Most people use it to sit down, because for the previous 3 hours, you haven't. At noon, your relief shows up, the same person you relieved at 6. They've been sleeping. Now you'll sleep, and they'll work. 6 on, 6 off. 12 hours of work a day, every day, for the entire trip. Some boats run 8 on, 8 off. Some run straight 12-hour shifts. The point is, the factory never stops. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until the freezer holds are full or the captain decides it's time to go home. After your shift, the routine is the same. You hit the spray down hoses to wash the fish off your gear. You strip out of your rain bibs. You shower if it's your shower day. You get to lunch before the line closes. You eat with the same 30 people you just worked with, because the next 30 are the ones you'll never really see, since they're either asleep or on the line right now. Then you've got about 4 hours that are yours. On the older trawlers, those 4 hours are spent in a cramped 4-bunk cabin with thin walls and one shared bathroom for the whole hallway. On the newer ones, like the British-built Kirkella, you get a private cabin with twin berths, a gym, a sauna, a buffet-style mess hall, and a day lounge. The difference between an old Russian trawler and a brand new Dutch one is the difference between a prison cell and a budget cruise ship. Either way, you don't have time to enjoy any of it, because at 6 p.m. the foreman pounds on the door again, and the fish start coming again, and they will keep coming for the next 6 hours until the next person rolls out of their bunk and takes your place. That's a day. There are 28 more of those before you see land. Here's what outsiders never see. The biggest factory trawlers stay at sea for 6 weeks at a time. Some go longer. The Annalise Ilena and ships like it can run for 2 months without touching port, because their freezers hold 7,000 tons of fish, and their fuel tanks hold 3,000 tons of diesel. You're not at sea for a weekend. You're at sea for a season. And the ocean does not care about your schedule. The North Atlantic and the Bering Sea, where most of these ships work, are two of the most dangerous bodies of water on the planet. Force 10 storms are routine. 20-foot swells are normal. The ship pitches and rolls and slams, and you're still expected to be on your feet, holding a knife in front of a conveyor belt that is not slowed down. People get thrown into machinery. People slip on wet decks. People lose fingers. There's usually no doctor on board. Whatever happens to you, the captain or the first mate has to handle it, with a first aid kit and a satellite phone. Then there's the cold. Inside the factory, it's just above freezing. You're standing in a wet, refrigerated room for 6 hours straight. Your hands go numb in the first hour. The good operators learn to fillet by feel because they can't actually feel anything. And then there's the thing nobody really talks about, which is the isolation. You're out of cell range. The Wi-Fi, if there is any, is rationed and slow. You're sharing a room with someone who doesn't speak your language, working with people from 5 different countries, all running on 4 hours of broken sleep a day. People get weird out there. Marriages end out there. People come home from a 6-week trip and don't recognize their own kids' faces because the kids grew that fast. The mental load is the part you can't train for. There's no escape. You can't go for a walk. You can't get a drink. You can't call your mom. You can't even really be alone because every space on the ship has another person in it. Even the bunks are stacked 2 and 3 high. And the work itself is dangerous in slower ways, too. Repetitive motion injuries are everywhere. Carpal tunnel, frozen shoulder, slipped discs from lifting 80-pound trays of frozen fish over and over. Most of the veterans you meet on these ships have something wrong with them. A wrecked back, a bad knee, a finger that doesn't bend right. They wear it like a badge. Sound brutal? It is. And yet, every year, the same people sign up to do it again. So why do they do it? The first answer is money. A factory worker on a good trawler can clear $5,000 to $8,000 a month with everything paid for. There's no rent to cover, no groceries to buy, no bar tabs running up, and no gas to put in your car. You go to sea broke, and you come home with a check that some people back on land take a year to earn. Captains and senior crew clear well into 6 figures. On a really good season, the share system can pay out tens of thousands of dollars per crew member from a single trip. The second answer is harder to explain. The people who keep coming back, the ones who do this for 15 or 20 years, they don't talk about the money first. They talk about the brotherhood. There's something about doing impossible work, with the same crew, in conditions that would break a normal person, that creates a bond you can't fake on land. You know who has your back when a swell knocks a tray of frozen cod off the rack at your head. You know who covers your shift when you're so sick you can't stand up. You know exactly what each of those 30 people is doing right now because you've watched them do it 1,000 times. The third answer, and this is the one I think hits hardest, is that there's a strange piece to it. On land, life is messy. There are bills, relationships, decisions, all running at the same time. Out there, your day is the same every day. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. For 6 weeks, you don't have to think, you just have to keep up. For a certain kind of person, that's not punishment, that's freedom. If you like going deeper than the surface level version of stories like this, subscribe. That's what we do here. But here's where the story gets uncomfortable. Those 38,000 factory trawlers out there aren't just a workplace story. They're an environmental story. And depending on who you ask, they're either the most efficient way humans have ever figured out how to feed the world, or they're the single biggest threat to the oceans right now. The numbers are hard to dispute. A single super trawler like the Margiris can process 250 tons of fish a day. The Annalise Elena can do 350. Their nets are over 1 kilometer long. To put that in perspective, the mouth of a pair trawling net opening is around 900 meters across, which is wider than the Eiffel Tower is tall. They scoop up entire schools at a time. And whatever else happens to be in that school. Dolphins, sharks, sea turtles, juvenile fish of other species, gets pulled up with it. In 2015, the Annalise Elena was detained by the Irish Navy and fined over €100,000 for illegally fishing in Irish waters and high grading, which is the practice of throwing the smaller, less valuable fish back into the sea dead so you can fit more of the big ones in the hold. The Marcha Theodora, another Dutch super trawler, was fined nearly €600,000 in 2012 after investigators discovered that over a quarter of the fish on board had been illegally caught. Australia banned the Margiris from its waters back in 2012 after recreational fishermen and environmental groups warned it would collapse the local mackerel fishery. The UK has been arguing about what to do with these ships ever since Brexit. Just this year, the Environmental Justice Foundation reported that EU-linked super trawlers spent over 14,000 hours fishing in Scottish waters in a single year, much of it inside marine protected areas. The industry pushes back hard. They argue that they operate sustainably, that they produce less carbon per kilogram of fish than smaller boats, and that the fish they catch feeds millions of people who couldn't otherwise afford protein. Both sides have a point, and neither side has fully won the argument. What's true, no matter what side you fall on, is this. The 200 people working on these ships didn't decide any of it. They didn't pick the quotas. They didn't write the laws. They didn't draw the boundary lines on marine protected areas. They just signed a contract, flew to a port somewhere, and got on the ship. The fish keep coming, and somebody has to gut them. That's the part of this story that doesn't make it into the news. So that's life on a $500 million factory trawler. 12 hours on, 12 hours off, for 6 weeks straight. A 144-meter steel city that floats in the middle of nowhere, eating fish for a living. The biggest workplace most people will never set foot in, doing the dirtiest work that almost everyone benefits from, and almost nobody thinks about. The crew comes home with money in their pockets, scars on their hands, and a couple of weeks to remember what their families look like before the next trip starts. And then they go back, because the fish keep coming, and somebody has to be there to catch them. There's another one on screen if you're not done yet.